Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to everyone. Hi, Mike. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your attention and welcome to the Bernice White Lecture Room, where track 2 of the discussion will take place under the topic Digital Transformation, Inclusion, and Consumer Trust. My name is Gideon George. I am an economist with the Research, Statistics, and Data Analytics Department, and I will be your humble servant guiding the proceedings this morning. Before we begin, I would like to address some housekeeping matters. Please ensure that all cell phones are placed on silent and other devices. Just outside the lecture room, as you came in, you saw that there are refreshments for your pleasure. And lastly, the bathrooms are outside next to the elevator. Okay, moving forward, I would like to thank you all for taking the opportunity to observe and participate in this important and necessary discussion as we navigate these nuanced matters surrounding digital transformation, inclusion, and consumer trust. We have 2 riveting panels this morning. The first is entitled From Data to Dignity, Empowering Consumers Through Digital Finance. The second is The People Push, Building Future-Ready Financial Institutions. The respective moderators of the panels will determine how questions are taken over their respective 50 minutes. And without further ado, I will now introduce our first moderator. Ms. C. Teresa Smith serves as the Corporate Secretary and Director of Corporate Governance at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and she has held this position since September last year. Before assuming that role, she was the Director of Research, Statistics, and Data Analytics, and she has previously led the Statistics Department for 11 years and also spent 13 years in the Research Department, where she progressed from economist to Deputy Director. She holds a master's degree in International Economics and Finance from Brandeis University and a bachelor's degree, summa cum laude, in Social Studies with a concentration in Economics from the University of the Virgin Islands. Throughout her distinguished career, she has collaborated with several regional and international organizations dedicated to advancing statistics within the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. And without further ado, I hand over the reins to Ms. C. Teresa Smith, our moderator for panel 1.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being with us this morning. We already had quite a riveting introduction in the opening sessions, and so now we hope to continue that discussion in these short panel discussions. So as was indicated, the first panel would be Data to Dignity, Empowering Consumers Through Digital Finance. Today we have 3 very distinguished panelists, and we will hear from them shortly. But just to set the context in terms of what this panel is all about, it examines how data and digital technologies can empower consumers and strengthen trust in financial systems. Quite recently, we had the inaugural ECCU Financial Literacy and Inclusion Survey, and the results were released. And from that, we got a sense as to what the region faces in terms of its literacy, its inclusion scores. And we noticed that, the average ECCU financial literacy scores stands at roughly 12.2 out of 20, which is 61%. Product awareness is high, but recent product usage is only 54.5%. Digital payments remain low. Fewer than half of ECCU adults made an electronic payment in the past year. That was based on the survey results. This indicates that access exists, trust lags, and behavior, not awareness, is now the constraint. And that's part of what we want to have a discussion on this morning. So financial inclusion must evolve from access to agency, empowering consumers with control, capability, and confidence in how data drives financial decisions. And that's what we want to focus on for our panel today. We have three panelists, and I'm going to introduce them and then give them the opportunity to just give some opening remarks, and then we'll have a discussion, conversation, so to speak, on the topic that's presented. So we have George Thomas, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Sagicor Bank Barbados Limited. He's a champion of the digital revolution with over 30 years of experience in the finance and technology sectors. Throughout his career, George has led digital transformation through the provision of internationally accepted cutting-edge technology solutions at global banks, fintechs, and consulting firms. George, a Barbadian national, has worked across, as we say, across the pond, providing executive leadership in the USA, Canada, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. We also have, as one of our panelists, Akinola McLean. He's the Director of Data and Innovation at the Technology Innovation and Integration, TI&I Division. A seasoned intelligence professional, Akinola is known for building high-performing teams that deliver strategic insights and drive business value. He leads transformative initiatives in cloud, AI, and data delivery with a strong focus on ethical innovation, transparency, and customer empowerment. We also have, excuse me, Maxine Richards-Johnny. Maxine is the Chief Executive Officer of the General Employees Cooperative Credit Union Limited, with 23 years of service to the organization. She began her career at KPMG before joining the General Employees Cooperative Credit Union Limited as an accountant, where she became the youngest member of the management team. In that role, she strengthened financial reporting and internal controls, modernized policies, and led major projects such as the establishment of new offices, mergers with other credit unions, and the implementation of electronic services, including the ATM network. So as you can see, we have three persons with three varied perspectives that they can bring to this very engaging topic that we have before us. So I'll just invite them each to just give us briefly their perspective before we delve into some of the questions. So, Mr. Thomas, any open remarks, please?
Good morning, everyone.
Would you put your mic?
It's a great pleasure to be here. I see in here, I've encountered some people from the past and the future in terms of my own journey. One of them was one of my project executives who encouraged me to push the envelope, hi Rolf, in terms of digital technology. But so I am currently the CEO of Sagicor Bank Barbados, which is the first pure-play digital bank in the Caribbean. Out in the world, they call us neobanks, challenger banks, and as such, we didn't transform. I have worked in transformation with I'll call it with CIBC in the past. I'm driving digital there for many years, and as our moderator has said, I've done it in many other places. But here was an opportunity to build digital from scratch, not burn the boat, but build the boat, so to speak. And so as we speak here, you're going to hear from myself and my other panelists hard-earned lessons in the trenches, not mythical things, but notional things, but our guesswork. But we are tasked with actually putting the bits and the bytes together and make them deliver real value for clients. And it's from that perspective that we will speak. So I'll say more as we go on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. McLean.
To add to what George said, there were some interesting statistics that you quoted as well. That's how do we, once we get the latest, greatest technology, how do we get adoption and scale? So based on the statistics that you said, it's around changing the attitudes of our consumers. When I say attitudes, I mean, why do you love Coke versus Pepsi? It's because of what you know, what you think, and what you speak. It's a concept that is grounded in marketing, cognition, conation, affectivity. And even though we have the latest tools, AI, intelligent automation, whatever it is, we must always remember the focus is our customers and their attitudes towards using said products. We are having a similar challenge right now at CIBC Caribbean. We've been at this AI thing for quite a while, and we are struggling with this part of adoption and scaling as well. We have the tools, we have the technologies, but as you said, quoted from the survey, adoption isn't there. So how do we affect what our customers know, think, and feel about us? And that's where the ethics with data and innovation comes in. One thing before I leave as well, what we found that worked for us is firstly to get capabilities in-house. Capabilities can be segmented in two major areas: the capabilities that make you technically excellent. So you could do descriptive and diagnostic analytics really well. You know what happened yesterday and why. And then there are capabilities that give you competitive advantage: predictive, prescriptive type analytics. What does the future hold? And those are ideally what we are trying to do, using those capabilities to be able to affect the attitudes of our customers and our staff. Again, attitudes determine what you do. What's your attitude towards paying us on time? What's your attitude towards adopting our product as opposed to the competitor? And that's primarily what our focus is, with technology and data being an enabler for what our customers know, think, and feel about us.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnny?
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I am so humbled to be here. And my presence here is a testament of inclusion, because here I am, a credit union at a licensed financial institution workshop conference. So credit unions, we have a large penetration rate. There are 50 credit unions around the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, serving about 500 account holders. Now, when I joined the movement, first thing I was told, credit unions are not banks, therefore we should operate in a certain way. Hence, our business model were more in-person, manual. I remember in 2008 when GECU, where I work, General Employees Cooperative Credit Union, decided that we are going to install an ATM machine, and that was a big debate. GECU wants to turn into a bank, but nonetheless we did it, and it was embraced. And with COVID, where social distances and physical distancing was a thing, that service was widely used. And fast forward to today, we are now using mobile banking, internet banking, and even the members we serve, about 49% are under the age of 40, where they are looking for a different type of service. They don't want to come in the credit union and line up. They want a service using their mobile devices. And this is where we are as credit union. And the inclusion of the ECCB of credit unions in some services that traditionally are offered by the banks. Because right now we're looking at credit unions being included on the ACH. That in itself speaks inclusion, and because we have such a high penetration rate, you quoted some statistics there. Credit union is an avenue where that service, that digital service, can reach the masses, because traditionally we are known as serving the unserved and the underserved. And I must applaud the ECCB for including us in several of the services that traditionally are provided to banks. And it's a good strategic move, because you will get to achieve the higher results that I know that the World Economic Forum wants to achieve. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, panelists. So as we get the ball rolling, I'm urging persons to have their questions, think about what you would want to ask the panelists, but to get us rolling, I'm just going to offer a few questions. So to Mr. Thomas. So how is Sagicor integrating responsible AI and data ethics frameworks into your product design and client analytics processes?
Okay, so we are based on AI, but a variant of AI called machine learning. That's how you can onboard without ever coming into a branch, or you do the ID and V, you take a picture of yourself, and it's compared by the machine learning to a government-issued ID. You upload your light bill, your utility bill, and the AI, understands the features of those things, and then make sure that you're valid. We've been able to find there's some cases where there's spouses who may have the bill in another person's name, and they just change it thinking it's all right, but the AI catches it. Generative AI is different. Generative AI with its large language models, that's something that we are looking at. It's still in the lab. We're more testing it on ourselves in terms of our internal service desk before we roll it out to the public. Because once you start dealing in large language models, you're plugging into, let us say, a super database, but also you're contributing to that, and that could cause information leakage. So, even as I said, we are actually at a place where we are implementing real things. So we have to take these things, as much as we are very innovative and pushing the envelope, we're also very cautious because we're not going to fall off the edge, right? So there's still a lot of experimentation internally being done around generative AI before we put solutions out to the client. But AI is being used, fraud management, fraud detection. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit too vigorous, because sometimes a person, for example, I was in Morocco last week and my car didn't work the first time I tried it because it doesn't know me out there, right? The AI is following your patterns and helping with fraud detection and fraud prevention. So those are the two areas where we are mostly using AI, which is upfront in terms of the AML KYC component, and also fraud management. The productivity types of earnings from agentic AI, and the types of AI scenarios that the good professor would have showed us in the main room, those are still in the lab because we have to be very cautious about how we treat client data. The other thing I would say is that we gather data for insights to understand how best to service our clients. And when our clients on board with us, we put it up front, the terms and conditions, giving us the right to share your data with validated third parties, which are our service providers and potentially our parent company, which is a massive insurance company, right? That is something that had to be put in place because of the Data Privacy Act that's been proclaimed in Barbados, and also aligning with GDPR. Right? So we get audited on an annual basis on the ISO 27001. We did twice this year because we went through the 2013 version and had to upgrade to the 2022 version. Then we do a SOC 2 assessment every year. So all of these international standards scrutineer how we manage our clients' data. So that is setting the foundations for this, making sure that data governance is upfront, making sure that when we absorb innovations, we do so in a very thoughtful way that does not potentially compromise our clients or us, and always with the customer in mind. And the other thing I want to say is communication. The key to going to digital adoption is being very physical. When we first started, we saw a lot of Gen Zs and millennials coming on board rapidly, but we noticed a measure of hesitancy among Gen X and a lot of hesitancy among the baby boomers. My most proud statistic is the 11% baby boomers that we now have. Why do we do that? Because we went into the community and met people like this. We got invited into large, medium-sized, small businesses and sat down in rooms like this and smaller and got a barrage of questions and walked people through scenarios like this in person, not via video, not digitally, but very physically. So the key to build trust, because we are all hardwired for human connection from birth with our mothers and our parents, we still require human connection. We try to fake it via social media, but at the end of the day, it's all about human connection. And I saw your stats for the EC Islands in terms of adoption and so on. Cutting through the trust barrier will require a program around client education, information sharing. In Barbados, it's being driven by the central bank, by the Bankers Association. I'm the deputy chair of the Bankers Association of Barbados. And we have public outreach programs in each individual bank, especially ours, that's all digital. We've had to go out and meet clients and potential clients from the Association of Retired Persons, the people with the otherly abled persons, youth groups, and other interest groups directly, and going into businesses to help people understand this is how to manage your finances digitally.
Thank you very much for that. I think you really underscored the importance of what Sagicor is doing in terms of empowering consumers through digital finance. And as the topic has already indicated, what we're trying to look at is data to dignity, right? Persons need to be aware that their data is being used in a particular way and have that ownership of the data. And so thank you for that. And so, Mr. McLean, similar to the question posed to Mr. Thomas, how do you balance innovation with consumer privacy obligations under emerging data protection standards?
Oh, that's a mouthful of a question.
It is.
How will I start this? Data, innovation within the AI and analytical realm must always be paired with a really strong moral and ethical backbone. At CIBC Caribbean, we embed privacy by design frameworks within every product that we release, any data product. When it comes to regulations, policies, those type of things, we don't see it as constraints. I am recently converted as well. I don't see it as a constraint. We do see it as an enabler for trust. And we believe that if we adopt these regulations and frameworks, it will be a true competitive advantage for us in terms of changing our customers' attitudes. Tactically, how do we embody this philosophy? When it comes to AI analytics, we have multiple models and solutions, from hyper-personalization, how do I talk to you and only you, to use cases for fraud detection and anomaly detection as well. What we do is ensure that every single use case that we put out has a robust consent framework behind it. And when we are developing our models, we use data minimalization principles to use as little data as possible to be able to train the models. What we found really interesting is in this AI journey is that most of the benefits to us as a financial institution didn't actually come from AI, it actually came from IA, intelligent automations. I'll go a little bit deeper into that. What automations allowed us to do is deal with innovation at scale. So how do we detect anomalies within the organization? How do we detect the misuse of data elements within the organization at scale? So AI automation. And finally, as we move forward with innovation, we believe that innovation must always be paired with responsibility. And that's how we embed data governance and these practices within everything that we do to maintain our customers' dignity.
Very much. Again, you underscore the data governance, the the whole integrity that we need to maintain. And so now I switch to Ms. Johnny and her perspective with the credit unions. So how are credit unions using member data to personalize services while maintaining cooperative trust?
Okay, so credit unions, by our very nature, we are people-centric, member-centric, community-driven institution. So basically what we do, we use analytics, we look at the saving pattern of members, about their borrowing patterns, depends on the situation of the day, in order to design products and services for our members. We have developed several loan products and saving products to more or less assist members based on how we see the needs are. For instance, within the last 5 years, we have had several different crises. So we had the health crisis, COVID-19, that resulted in an economic crisis. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we had a volcanic eruption, and we had Hurricane Beryl. So as credit unions, and specifically GECO, we developed different products that would have attended to the needs of different members, and not only members, the community, because we focus on community a lot. We have a very strong corporate social responsibility presence in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And is it within that regard? I mean, I could go on and name several of the products that we have developed, but I know time is a constraint. But that is the lens that we use to determine the products and services for members and non-members alike. All right.
Thank you for that information. So I'd like now just to open up the floor to any questions from the floor, from the members. So yes, we'll take them in some rounds. So I acknowledge one person so far. Are there any others at the moment? Two? A third one, any? So that we can get three? Okay, let's just go with the two for now.
Okay.
Please indicate your name.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Carol Ford Harrigan, and I'm the country manager in the agency office, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank in Antigua and Barbuda. I do have two questions for our SAGICO and CIBC panelists. Can you speak to the required supporting infrastructure and legislation, if any, that is required to assist you with facilitating the efficient use of AI in terms of the products and services that you're offering to your clients? Specifically on the legislation, I was thinking of IT services support, making sure that it is properly supported for your customers to be able to access. I come from a place where a lot of the times applications are not easily accessible because of sometimes poor internet services. There's a lot of disruption in services. And so I just wanted you to kind of just give some insights into any required infrastructure or legislation that has assisted in any way to improve your processes. And then on the credit union side, you mentioned a lot of the products and the services that you have derived from the analysis of data. But how much of your products and services come from your customers, and you give them an opportunity to say, this is what we need, and you have responded to their requests in providing products and services? I hope my questions were clear.
I think they were.
Okay.
Oh, a mouthful again. I'll try to dissect this. So firstly, so technology that enabled us to move forward, and then the legislations that help guide us to do things correctly, right? In terms of the technologies that accelerated our move to adopting AI and automation technologies, firstly, there is always the cloud. The cloud allowed us to get resilient and also allowed us to scale. But I must urge some caution here. Moving to the cloud with the wrong mindset and the wrong operating model, what you end up with is a very expensive on-premise architecture, and you don't get the benefits that you are looking for. Second was around our API framework. So we are moving towards a more real-time data exchange when it comes to offering our data products and services to the organization and to the region. And for that, we need a robust API layer that's built on microservices. Within the microservice ecosystem, you could be as complex or as simple as you want. You could go towards event sourcing, event-driven processing, all of the technical jargon, but again, you do need some type of framework and structure for that layer. And the one that brings it all together in terms of tools is how do we deal with cybersecurity and threats? We adopt a zero trust cybersecurity type approach in terms of the implementation of these tools. But we must be mindful that an organization does not get the capability just by having tools. I believe a true capability is only attained when it's within your people, your processes, and your tooling. What I've found in most financial institutions, we have capabilities in a person. If that person go on vacation, Lord help us. We lose that capability, right? If the tool goes down, Lord help us. But that's not how we build capabilities. In terms of how do we bring that together, we had an investment before when it comes to data management on a whole. So whether you want a real-time data exchange or one based in more routine type tasks, batch-based ETL, ELTs, you need to invest in your underlying data management capabilities. So capabilities when it comes to data warehousing, data integration, data quality, master data management, metadata management. You need those capabilities at the core to ensure that your capabilities are long-lasting. As I said, some of these capabilities lead to technical excellence, the other leads to competitive advantage. In terms of legislations, because we are parent with a Canadian bank, we fall under the OSFI regulations, which are really rigid when it comes to service delivery and service availability. So everything that we move from proof of concept to proof of value to production must follow certain guidelines that ensure that based on the tier of that service to our customers, we always have certain resiliency and availability requirements that must not only be there on paper, it must be demonstrated. For example, we have to fail over and stay in our disaster recovery location for 2 weeks now before we fail back. Not just turn it on, oh shucks, it's working, turn it back, right? We have to show that we could operate like that. So I hope that I captured all of the questions. It's not just the tools. You have to focus on building capabilities. And in going to each department, what it is we found in trying to adopt AI is when we really started to look at the use cases, most people, they think they need AI, they don't. What they need is intelligent automations, things that really allow them to create capacity within their unit, and how you use that excess capacity is how you get competitive advantage. I think I've addressed every portion of your question.
What he said. but we built 100% in the cloud. Everything. We don't have a data center for that. For those reasons, API driven, 100% in the cloud, SaaS solutions. The one thing I would say is to that. Oh yes, and there's the Data Privacy Act that got proclaimed in Barbados after our business case was approved, which, you know, I thought I was going to go and enroll all the insurance customers, and then, you know, you can't do that. It's a separate company. So that then all 30,000 people I have now have been harder in the field. But the legislation, the regulations, as a Canadian bank, CIBC goes to OSFI. For me, we go against ISO 27001 and SOC 2. So every year we're recertified there. So that would be the equivalent. And you need to understand your telecommunications infrastructure very, very, very well. You need to have a close relationship with the telcos. I didn't stutter, I'm not sibilant. S, both, all three. However how many in your country, you need to have a relationship with them with their engineering department, with their head office, so that you can get best-in-class service. Because you spoke of in terms of quality of service, I think I heard something in there about quality of service. That's it. Because if you're going to interface with the telco like any other business, and yours is either 100% digital business or you're a massive legacy company that is transitioning hundreds of thousands of clients over to digital, you need that level of assurance. You need to have relationships with both, and you need to make sure that the quality of service that you're paying for with your SLAs and so on are intact, and you must be able to fail over between the 2 or 3 service providers, and your infrastructure must be able to understand which service provider it's on and move accordingly. So that's all I would add. But everything Akinola says, 100%.
All right. So in terms of your questions, there are several mediums that we use to connect with our members. At the annual general meeting, I don't know if there's any Vincentian in here, I've never been to our AGM, but he has never been to one. But they are quite, the members they express themselves. And those are forums that we use and hear what the members, their needs, the services they're looking for. From time to time, we may have town hall meetings, and we do surveys, not on a very regular basis as we should. But I just want to talk about 2 products. There is, I have to be so careful how I say this one because there's a heated election campaign going on in my country. But there was an education revolution in St. Vincent and the Grenadines where education at different levels were being pushed. And our members, in terms to facilitate that, they wanted loans, access to finance, computers, whatever tools that is needed in order to take up whatever advantages are there. So hence we design our product, 2 loan products. One was a computer loan where we, at a very low interest rate, members can get computers and whatever devices they need in order to further their education. And some members, while they may qualify for a loan in terms of their ability to repay, may not have the security. So we also designed another loan product to cater for that situation. At our AGMs and even in our survey, our members are asking for global payment options. While we have an ATM card, we do not have international debit, we don't have credit cards. Not that we don't have the appetite, we do have the appetite. But in terms of the access to that service, we were going through one of our local commercial banks, and I said we started our ATM 2008. 2 years after, we went straight full head forward into getting international payment access, and it's taken an inordinate amount of time. And every year at our AGM, we have to face our members. Now, there are other avenues that we can use outside of that commercial bank we have been working with. And so collaboratively, other credit unions in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are working towards having that global payment options available. So basically, yes, we do listen to our members and we try to design products and services that is fit for purpose and can have that appeal that our members want, because it's a competitive industry and we are serving a different age group that want a certain type of service, so we have to ensure that we change with time. So basically.
Stosh Brown, Eastern Caribbean Amalgamated Bank, Antigua. And both of my questions are for you, Mr. McLean. Yes. Now, Mr. Thomas mentioned that as part of their onboarding process, they include the data sharing and make it front and center. Am I correct? Yes. In the terms and conditions, yes. From my experience, the moment our customers hear anything about data gathering and data sharing, their backs raise. You mentioned that you embrace data privacy legislation and you see it as an agent for change. How do you then convince your customers to think the same way? That is one. And two, how do you encourage adoption of your digital channels and products? Because that's a challenge we have been having, and the stats show that, no matter the education, no matter, how many benefits we point out that these things have. For instance, yesterday I got a call from a customer, and we were on the phone for about 5 minutes. I was trying to convince her, she needed to get a reference letter. I was trying to convince her this can be done via our online banking. No need to go into the bank. Everything, we can even email it to you. Oh, no, it's urgent. I want to go in. They just like to speak to somebody. And so how do you get that adoption?
Okay, how do I say this without revealing the secret sauce?
And there's that.
All right. So ideally, it's the same thing. You have the product, because I had a similar problem like this in my career before, right? How do you change someone's attitude about something? Again, cognition, cognition, affectivity, what they know, what they think, what they feel. Sometimes that message coming from you may not be able to change your attitude, but it coming from a trusted person within their network, they can deliver that message more impactful than you as well. So there's different approaches to this, and it's all founded in marketing, sorry to say. It's not data and analysis help you find your target segments, and you could probably create strategies to say, this is my most profitable segment, what are my strategies to keep them there? People who are not in this segment, what are my strategies to move them there, right? And then it comes the adoption and scaling, which is a change management exercise. Change management is two things. With those customers, I would say you need to first discern whether they don't have enough information about the change, because you might think that you've communicated, but you've not communicated effectively. Or if it's true, resistance to the change. Depending on what that is, your strategy changes to get them to change their attitudes. No secret sauce. In terms of getting the change management strategies behind these two groups of people would be key. But what you have as well is a lot of advocates within your organization who could help change these people's attitudes inadvertently, not direct, like below the line campaign and things like that, right? So you first win over your staff. You'll find 3 major groups of people here. They are the people who are front and center to adopt, the early adopters. The majority of people will be skeptical, same as your customers. They want to sit and wait to see how this thing pan out before I jump head in. But then there is a group here that's very influential and dangerous. They are your foot draggers. They are the people that, depending on their power and influence, could destroy everything. And again, I will tailor strategies to those 3 groups of people as well. You need to convert your skeptics to be advocates and keep them there, because it's easy for them to fall back, right? Within your foot draggers type of people, identify the truly influential ones and focus on making them happy. And then what you start to see naturally happening with very little marketing effort is the general attitudes of your customers start to change and wade. And if you work on your staff as well, you have internal advocates. That if someone reaches them by the water cooler or by the football match and they ask a question, they are your biggest selling points as well. So that's how I would approach it in terms of adoption and scaling. The technology and the tooling is just one part of it. This is a change management process. Figure out, is it they don't understand the change because you think you've communicated, but they haven't received the information. If it's resistance, that's a totally different strategy. And again, that paired with the different segments within there as well, That's how we started to get micro strategies. And then for every strategy that you employ or every product that you release, we have a framework. We ask ourselves, is it attainable, achievable? Is it astute? Does it align to our goals? Because, sorry to say, there are customers that you probably want your competitor to have, right? Because it costs more to serve them than the revenue that they bring in, right? So is it astute? And finally, is it sustainable? And that's where I think most of the persons that are doing AI and these types of things right now, they're missing that last part, the sustainability of it. And when we bring in the customers and their expectations change and they trust us now, do we have the mechanisms to keep that trust? I think I answered most of the question.
I see a lot of it. It has generated some questions, some further questions, but I got an indication that we are limited in our time. So I recognize the gentleman below and the lady behind, well, 3 other persons then. But we have 10 minutes, so please try to, 4. I see you as well.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment as a former CIBCer, in that don't worry all that story. They just tell them we don't do that service anymore. in the branch, if you want it, you have to go online, and they can get away with that as an international bank. We can't as local banks because we're seen as owned by the public, and there is some of that sentiment in there. But they do a lot of great things with the online technologies to make them reliable. But just to bring some context back into this dialogue, I think the positioning of the dialogue so far is way beyond where most of the industry, as far as indigenous banks are concerned. In that, in the case of I work with all the banks as part of the ECCU Bankers Association, and we are at the level where we have implemented technologies out of necessity to give customers access to information. But as far as back-end integration is concerned, we have so many systems. Our cards operate by a different provider that we don't have APIs to pull that data in. We have different parts of our systems that don't necessarily fully integrate customer information with each other. So before we even talk about moving forward, intelligent automation, I like that statement. But before we move forward to talk about AI, and then of course we have this big issue of trust, because in a lot of cases, our data centers and our backup sites are not properly hardened. They are not separated from power supplies and buildings. So the ability to build customer trust around maintaining really high level of consistent service is not there. And these are hurdles that all our institutions have to overcome by a lot more collaboration, a lot more planning around data transformation before we could think about AI. Data governance is again something that all of us are grappling with: data governance and data quality and data standards. So maybe as I know CIBC has gone well down this journey. George, your organization came in as a digital bank, but how have you approached starting out with data governance and having system integration at the back end? I think you have a central operation, so it makes that a little bit easier. But surely you must have had systems where integration was not there at the level that allowed you to see customer behavior. So can you bring some reality back into the conversation, in the context of where indigenous banks are and LFIs are generally?
Thanks for that. I'm going to ask you to pause 1 second. Perhaps we could take the 4 questions and then allow them to respond, because they might be interconnected as well. Huh? You want to write it down? You should. Feel free. I'll take the 2 ladies in the back first, and then I'll come back to you. Thank you. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Siobhan Alexander, policy analyst here at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and a proud member of GECU St. Vincent and the Grenadines, proud and happy member. So before I ask my... what did you say? So before I ask the question, I'd like to reflect a little bit on what we are discussing here this morning, empowering consumers through digital finance. I'd also like to reflect on one of the key messages presented by the governor this morning. The first one was people first. I also want to share a statistic with you, which is penetration, internet penetration is approximately 80%. So there are about 20% of persons that we can describe as, in your words, people not in the segment when it comes to access to digital finance. My question is, have you been reflecting on how digital finance, on how to promote digital finance even among those without access to the internet? Thanks.
Morning, my name is Julietta Edinburgh. I'm the fiscal and debt specialist here at the bank. In the interest of time, I think I'll ask one question. So I think it was Mr. Thomas who mentioned the use of AI, or the new term that I like, IA, in validating your IDs. So if it was Mr. Thomas or Mr. McLean, and that caught my attention, because as customers, ultimately what we always looking at is ways to minimize costs of undertaking services. And that has been a challenge, I find, in the region. So the governor spoke this morning about the retail bond, which I am heading in that regard. And one of the challenges that we've noted is that if you try to undertake a service with a non-resident entity, then you not only have to complete a lot of the forms manually, but you have to get everything notarized. And for a customer, that is an added cost. And so I wanted to understand how you were able to move from that process to where you're at now. Thanks.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I want to direct my comments to you. And do you think as institutions we are doing sufficient to drive the change that we want digitally and the behaviors from our customers that is needed? Because I listened to you talk, and I heard all that you said, and you sounded like the preacher that, do as I say, but, or give me the phrase, not as I do. Okay, because I think back to what CIBC has done, and CIBC has, from a customer standpoint, has really driven the change by not giving people much option. We are going to accept payments for our credit cards over the counter, not going to accept payments for a credit card over the counter by XYZ date, okay? And you just have to make the change. And I don't necessarily disagree with the approacher. I think it has forced people to do what is needed to be done. You see a number of people gravitating towards CIBC primarily because of the strides that they have made in digitizing their operations and the ease with which they have made banking. In many instances, particularly for the indigenous institutions, I find we sell our people a little short in that we keep making excuses that, well, there's a segment of the population that may not necessarily buy into it or can't buy into it, that we run the risk of eliminating. And I think back to some of the Asian countries, and you go to the supermarkets and you go to places, and you see people who are 80 and 85 years old going and tapping their phone. And is it that they're more educated than us? Is it that they're more technologically savvy than us? And I think we have not made sufficient effort to drive those behaviors that we want. And to what extent do you believe that we are not driving the change that we want sufficiently?
Thank you very much. few responses?
Do we start from the front, from the top, and make the way down?
Yes, you can.
So,
Mindful of the time, of course. Though.
So Rolf, in terms of the maturity, I mean, we went through those maturity battles. We had cards, 2 different card systems, 1 core, and then you invited me to introduce another core. So we had 2 cores, 2 card systems, and then something else, 5 different systems. And if a client had 5 different products on those, then there was 5 different account openings, which was 5 different horrible experiences. The thing that and coming from that environment and coming to an environment where I got a blank slate, not a check, a very small check, to create all digital, I can see that there is some preparatory work that is incumbent upon the organizations to do in terms of integrating systems. Because if you try to sell the client experience without getting the systems integrated, you're not going to get there. It's not going to happen. So there's internal transformation that has to happen first in a very mindful, thoughtful, structured manner. And then you're able to go to your clients and say, look, this is what we present to you. To the prior question, in terms of one of the things that happens is that inside of a legacy organization like CIBC that has done so much transformation work, there is this much innovation happening that is really, really, really good, and this much communication. So the client base doesn't know. So what's going to happen is people aren't, again, physical has to drive digital. If you're going to drive transformation, you have to have meetings with people in groups like these, and sometimes hostile groups. So I myself, because we're a small bank, I stand in front of the people and talk and take the questions and walk people through. We onboard people on the spot. And they say, oh, that's how it works. And this is where your data is going, and this is how we are using your data. So then you start to build trust. And Akinola mentioned, then you get a viral effect. So when we first opened, the first month, we got 1,800 people. I was disappointed. Like, wow, only 1,800? Because from the surveys, everybody wanted to go digital. But everybody want to talk it. But when it comes time to do it, they start to get scared. So 1,800, of those 1,800, 70% were millennials or Gen Zers who sleep with their phones like this, right? So that's all they want to do. We had to go meet with the Association of Barbados Association of Retired People. We had to go meet with in the communities. We had to go down Swan Street and get cussed out by some Rasta men for the vagaries of our parent company. It happened to them 10 years ago. Those kinds of things happen. We had to get human and physical to cut through, to be able to then, I think one other month we did about 2,000 people, but steady 1,000. I was like, why can't I get past it? But at least I could maintain the 1,000. So today, probably in a week or two, we'll cross the 30,000 person mark in less than 30 months. But the point is, there has to be a constant dialogue. We use a lot of Barbados digital penetration is good, so that's one fortunate thing for me. We use a lot of Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We use a lot of digital media, but we had to get very physical because in the beginning the digital wasn't working. Even in Barbados, it's fully penetrated, and the digital was not working. It worked for the young people who are transactional and who will put $5 on the bank, $10, and because we allow you to just have something on without any charges. But it did not work for the people that were really doing banking. You had to get to them and talk to them. So first thing to do is fix the integration problems. That has to happen internally, and then you have to have messaging, constant messaging. The 80%, the 20, if a person is not connected, then they can't sell digital services to them. That's just it. And what happens, I lived in Dubai, and I worked in the Middle East for 4 years. Maybe it's not the right thing to say, but a lot of these countries, they're governed like this, right? I'm just going to gesture. there's no, that's where you're going, right? And you see that the biggest, deepest digital penetration happens in the countries that are governed like this. Think about it, right? They're not questioning, going left, or is this, right? So that's why you'll see the adoption. It's not that they're smarter, it's like, they got to do that. And we have choices, right? So that's something to think about. Do we want to have choices? And the validation, the ID, the one place that I struggle is with corporates. And with foreign entities, they must have a nexus back to the country, and again, to validate them, because for many years, and again, we worked through this with the FBI call and so on, people would open bank accounts in our countries that never set foot here, and then all kinds of interesting things were happening in our countries. So then you have these blacklists and these gray lists and all kinds of things. So then the regulator now, ECCB, will say, look, you need to maintain, you cannot, thou shalt not do this, this, that, and that, right? Because to protect against those things, so that we don't end up on those gray lists and so on. Hence, it is quite a journey. If you're not resident, or if you're a company, I could say I have not cracked the code yet to making corporate registration as easy as retail registration, because it's a lot more intricate and involved thing. And are we doing enough to drive change? Again, like I said, the places that have significant change, totally digital, mention those places, look at their how they govern. And I lived in one of them, so that's what it is.
Thanks.
I'll take this from a different angle. So the first one, KYC, know your customer, customer golden record, we keep on hearing all of this, right? How do we connect data from different repositories where our traditional business model for the last 100 years was all around separation of duties? There are egos involved, because there's a lot of people change to be done, but there's a massive technological investment that's needed as well. So when I first joined the organization, we had a program called DREAM, and it was about breaking down those barriers and data silos and ensuring that we have the governance mechanisms that should align to management, but there were a lot of friction there as well, because you have to meet somewhere in the middle. Effective management or effective governance. So like with data products, if you go with effective governance only, you might end up with 1,000 products. That's unmanageable. But if you merge it two, you might end up with a sweet spot of probably like 100. So we had a technological initiative to bridge that gap. It started off to be not near real time. So batch brace, bring all the data elements into one place. Then we focus on how to get this to near real time and in real time as possible. Only selecting the data elements that were critical to making our decisions. So we don't try to make everything in one place, right? Only the 80% of the 20% of data elements that 80% of people use. You'll always find the 80-20 no matter where you go. And that's where we focused on. In terms of accessibility, as George alluded to, not having internet access, that is a barrier to getting digital products. But what we are working on with our digital products is how do we integrate the differently abled as well. So we test all of our digital products for the blind, the deaf, because again, it was really interesting when someone called the contact center. I got this from an associate director by us that deals with digital client experience. When she saw how they use our mobile app, put it by the ears, and I was like, wow. And so we have focus groups around those groups. And what we've started to do in the last 18 months is outreach as well. And we have some financing for social initiatives, like meeting schools, enabling different communities, and that's what we are actively doing as well. We also started a Beyond Intelligence outreach. Again, it was focused in Barbados, and we are planning to expand to Jamaica and Trinidad. And here is where I think we could partner with the ECCB to extend that outreach to the Eastern Caribbean as well. This helps with education and helps with some of the funding for these social causes as well. And coming to you as well, I would bet you that everyone within CIBC, when we have technological changes and movements, believed that they effectively communicated. If I go to everyone, they'll show me all the different media releases and so they did to inform the customer that this change was coming. But again, is it effective communication? Probably not, because there are still people who believe that these things were forced upon them. It is a problem that we are facing being a relatively large organization in the Caribbean where we have different silos. So we have different marketing units, different people competing in different product segments as well. And that's a gap that we do have to bridge as well. So in terms of our digital push and adoption, we are focusing now on unifying our marketing strategy and our communication strategy, so it's not so diverse. We have to make sure that we manage the touch points with all of our customers in a more strategic way. It's not group A, fire 5 texts, group B, fire 6 texts, and 17 emails coming in, right? That's where we lose the effective communication as well. So again, we are really trying to drive change, but the question is, how do we do it? There isn't any blueprint, and the most we could do is try to have a different strategy for different segments and then measure the effectiveness of these strategies. So again, I hope that I answered all of the questions, but again, I do invite the ECCB to help to partner. One other thing that we partner with as well is talent. That was really tough for us, to be honest, to get the right talent to go with the technologies and tooling that we have. So what we did with Trinidad, Barbados, and UAE is partner with them. So we get graduates, and we have a program to be able to get them to performing as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we don't have something like this within the Eastern Caribbean. Most of the people that work with us from the Eastern Caribbean, I get them through the Chevening program, right? Again, that's where I identify talent. But again, talking to some of you guys here, there's a lot of talent here as well that we don't have access to. Again, and that's how we want to extend our outreach to try to bridge that gap in terms of effectively communicating, number one. Number two, being in the markets, doing the social outreach, there may be opportunities for us to sponsor and serve underrepresented communities. And all of that is on the table from CIBC Caribbean.
Thank you very much. And undoubtedly, this has generated much discussion. It's something that's top of mind to a lot of persons. We are constrained by time, but what I would want to encourage persons to do is to use the opportunity of the networking opportunity, either at lunchtime or this afternoon, to reach out to the panelists and to further the discussion with them. I'm just going to ask, do we have time for 1 minute for them to give their closing? 1 minute. So everybody divvy up your 1 minute. But we'll start with Ms. Johnny.
All right. Okay, so my 1 minute will be more of an appeal. You have heard the stats of the penetration, the high penetration of credit unions in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. You heard I spoke about one of the challenges that we have in terms of having the appetite for services, but because of our very nature, the way we are made up, that we need the partnership and collaboration with other financial institutions, banks. I'm not sure if anyone is here from 4Cs. I assume there will be persons who are involved in the leadership of 4Cs. Just to say that to embrace credit unions, we have had, we know with their credit unions who work with 4Cs, and recently we tried to have a dialogue with 4Cs and it didn't go very well. But credit unions can be part of the solution in terms of the statistics that I was given earlier because of our large reach. And we want the opportunity. We know the risks that are involved. Yes, we are a credit union, and yes, they are banks, but the risk is the same. We are all financial institutions. And in that regard, give us the opportunity to be part of the solution, ECCB and other financial institutions, when we reach out to you for partnership and assistance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnny. Mr. Thomas? Half a minute.
So this has been very good and very eye-opening. I think the benefit that you have is that you have examples very near to you across the Caribbean, Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, who are not at the pinnacle of digital transformation, but are maybe a bit further along the journey. So there's lessons learned, there's mistakes that would be made in these other places that you wouldn't make. But also, one thing I would say is, from all know, it is important to commence and keep a constant physical contact dialogue about your plans, about the vision, the roadmap with your clients. That is the only way that you're going to really foster transformation. It's going to start small. So if there's what the number I heard was 59%, 60% adoption. Was it that? 80% connectivity. Well, then we got to look at the dialogue with the government, the telecommunications union, and the telcos about why is the other 20% not connected. Get everybody connected. That's one thing. And then the other thing is for the institutions, and I know it's always a budget thing, integrating systems, and it's not cheap, right? So there's some think out of the box thinking that may need to be have. Think about the journey to the cloud. It may be the faster journey for you than trying to tie everything that's existing together, depending on scale. I don't have the right answer for that. But again, the dialogue with the public, I think, is very, very important. And partner up. Banks partner with the credit unions and so on, because the credit unions, you touch everybody, right? So that's where you have a voice, and they trust you. So that's the beginning of trust right there. So that would be what I have to offer.
Thank you.
How do I close this? What we ended up with, we had to figure out the type of culture that we want, how best to serve our customers, and it's how we treat our back office staff as well. So we have a mantra. Can we have low cost, high innovation, but all done within a framework? If you can't articulate the problems that you are having or the destination that you are seeking, you can't solve it. And because we are aiming for that, we were able to find unique solutions that take us closer to that goal. When it is, I say, innovation is based on the speed that you could cycle through bad ideas, right? So the faster you allow your people to cycle through their ideas safely, the more innovative that you are. That's what I truly believe. How do we offer them that at a low cost? That's where cloud and those type of technologies come in, but they must have the right operating model. And we are in a highly regulated environment. How do we allow that type of freedom and innovation, but within a framework that keeps our customers safe? We were able to create a unique solution that addresses all of this. So for example, we have environments that have totally synthetic data that has the same patterns of production data, where people could freely experiment and cycle through all the bad ideas as fast as possible. They go through 100 and they find one that is really gold. And the gold that we've been finding with all the AI technologies, all the tools, all the hype out there, are simple, intelligent automations. And intelligent automations starts with basic robotic process automation. You'll find within your processes things that are very deterministic. It's always A plus B is always equal to C. But because we have separation of duties, there's a lot of churn and handoff there, time taken. Automating that hits the bottom line, because now you allow your team even more room to experiment and ideate within this safe space. For problems that are more probabilistic, it requires human intervention. That's where you go along the spectrum, where you add a little bit of Gen AI within your automations and making it intelligent, or you allow it to use tools and you go to agentic. But slowly but surely, the first thing is the automations to create capacity, create the environment and psychological safety for your team to innovate, and then slowly you'll see yourself start to move up that curve in terms of robotic process automations, to intelligent automations, to agentic, and then all of these AI solutions that you keep on hearing about really and truly becomes feasible. But again, at every step of the way, ensure that you have rigid consent protocols, ensure that you have the mechanisms around data minimalization and model explainability or algorithmic explainability. You have to know why something made a decision and be able to audit it. We were able to do that as well because, let me just give you two examples before I close. One example of automation was horizon monitoring. Yeah, one example was horizon monitoring, right? What we were able to do, because we have regulators all across the region and the world, we were able to look at 40, 50 different websites and detect any change in regulations. We immediately ingest that within our ecosystem and make that available to a large language model. What happens there now is that our risk team, instead of spending 16 to 20 hours a week doing horizon monitoring, checking what changes, they immediately know what changed. It evaluates based on all of our projects that are in flight, how this new change will affect them, and it also does a retroactive analysis based on all projects already in production. So then our risk team now, instead of doing horizon monitoring, they now work with our delivery teams in shoring up our solutions in flight and the ones that are in production. That's a perfect example of how the solution was intelligent automation. It created capacity in our risk unit, and thus it making our products more and more secure. And the more we do that, and the more we allow them to innovate, the better we get.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLean. So we want to thank the panelists for this very enriching discussion, and thank persons for their participation as well. So we end the first round now and make room for the second panel. Thank you.